This conference will now be recorded.
Dear listeners, good evening. Welcome to the Nautical Institute Cyprus branch webinar, Key Workers Challenges. Many of you are already aware that Nautical Institute is a non-profit organization, and our branch is managed by a group of dedicated Institute member volunteers that forms the local committee. Our aim, I will not delve into because I'm sure Madam President from Nautical Institute will touch on that subject herself. I would like to say a big thank you to our members and the committee for the time that they do take from their own lives for the branch on a voluntary basis. Each of you are kindly asked to keep your microphones and cameras closed to ensure clarity of our esteemed speakers, and adding that the branch's webinar, as always, will be recorded and shared at a later stage. We most certainly welcome questions, so absolutely, please write them in the comment icon appearing on the top right side of your screens. Write the name of the person from whom you would like to receive a response to the question you are posing. I thank you for joining this evening's candid discussion or debate, if that's what we want to call it, addressing valuable key workers and related challenges, including seafarer vaccination protocol, intergovernmental and stakeholder cooperation, as well as the technical and safety aspects attached to an uninterrupted disruption of the global seagoing transportation chain. Let's keep in mind this evening that even though we, in a maritime bubble, already know, we've been hearing for years that shipping is vital for our survival. Of course it is. And that's not just the ships themselves, but the whole maritime chain. Owners, managers, crew, charterers, agents, lawyers, a rainbow of important suppliers, port infrastructure, and of course regulators, and so many others within the shipping and trading sector before any product lands at the doors or on the shelves for the man, woman or child on the street. Today we shall hear from three, in my opinion, brilliant, passionate, responsible and highly respected individuals within this wonderful world of shipping, or as per the title of the book of the author, Rose George, 90% of everything, discussing issues directly affecting the continuous flow in an unprecedented era that nobody could have anticipated would be so devastating in a 21st century modern world. So I'm delighted to have with us three esteemed and industry familiar faces from three countries, Australia, the Netherlands and Cyprus, each of whom, in my opinion, don't need introductions, although I will only say briefly the following and allow them thereafter to introduce themselves. The Nautical Institute President, Miss Gillian Carson-Jackson, who is in fact based in Australia, where she is depriving herself of much needed sleep, I guess, and generously supporting our branch for this webinar. Gillian's exciting journey commenced when she graduated as a navigation officer from the Canadian Coast Guard. Secondly, a lady who has been a personal inspiration for me, who wears many hats within the industry, and who, at the age of 18, was exposed to this contagious industry, and by the age of 23, became a shareholder in her first ship, and today is CEO and majority shareholder in the company MF Shipping, Miss Karen Orsel. Thirdly, is a gentleman and a captain with a wealth of onboard and ashore knowledge and expertise, owning and managing his own vessels and third-party vessels, where he left his home country of Germany to live and operate on the beautiful birthplace of Aphrodite, Cyprus, Captain Adami. So, starting with Madam President, please be so kind to share with us a little about yourself.
Thank you very much. It really is such an honor and a pleasure to be here and to participate. I do believe someone might have their mic on, so perhaps if they could turn off the microphone, because I can hear it in the background. You might have control of that. So it's been an honor to have this journey and to participate in this session. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the Nautical Institute, and I do believe that Yvonne mentioned that. So the Nautical Institute is a global body for maritime professionals afloat and ashore, and we focus on our members. Through that, we use a members portal with access to free training, professional resources, and much more. There are, of course, the publications of the Nautical Institute, the books, the magazines, and the publication, The Navigator. We do as well accreditation services. You probably will be most familiar with the DP, the Dynamic Positioning Accreditation. Also, we do accreditation for offshore oil response and for vessel traffic services, audits for those. We have consultative status at the IMO, and the branch network is really the format of how we work together. Everyone working within this branch network, and indeed my own role as president, are all voluntary positions that we do because we believe so strongly, so firmly in what the industry is and what it can be. There's around 7,000 members in 120 countries with 70 or more branches. In fact, I come to you hot on the heels of our latest council meeting, where we were talking and focusing on the various issues that we have around the Nautical Institute. When I took on this role of president, and that would have been in July of 2020, it was a first in more ways than one. I was the first female president of the Nautical Institute, and it was the first AGM that we had ever held online. The NI was at the beginning of making that pivot online. I wondered what 2020 would bring. I wondered what 2021 would bring, and now we know more of the same. In fact, just yesterday in Australia, we had the new budget came down, and as you know, that's always a big deal. And in that budget, they highlighted, the government highlighted the fact that they don't expect to open up Australia to international travel until mid-2022. So we just are sort of all coming to grips with what that means. In Australia, though, we haven't been hit very hard by COVID. We are still seeing some snap lockdowns. They address individual cases of community transmission, but this international border closure is quite definitely there, and it has a big impact when you're looking at the opportunity to do crew changes and the opportunity to support seafarers. I do know that in many parts of the world, COVID is still hitting very hard, and within our own Nautical Institute family, we are aware of many persons who have friends, families, colleagues who have been affected or died during this COVID time, and my heartfelt condolences to all of those. So these ongoing challenges of food change continue, and that's really what they're focusing on our discussion. In my last president's quick poll, I had a number of questions focusing on how COVID has affected people directly. Roughly half the respondents indicated that they have been identified as key workers. That means roughly half of the respondents have not been identified as workers. Over 90% indicated that that key worker status is critical for seafarers. But the benefits of what being a key worker have not actually been clarified. While crew change process protocols may not necessarily be clearly stated or understood by the seafarers responding, what was wonderful was the great majority of the seafarers responded that the companies have been working hard to support seafarers through the crew change process. So there really is a very strong support. And this is following on with the strong support of industry. I believe it's over 800 signatures now on the Neptune Declaration, where we still see, though, very few countries, a relatively small percentage of countries, have actually identified seafarers as workers. So we're seeing a bit of a disconnect here with that. And I thought I just wanted to share the results of that that quick poll that I put out with my last email, because I thought it was very pertinent to what we're doing. And really the questions that we're looking at now is what next? So we've got Neptune Foundation declaration. We know there's an issue. What practical measures can be taken to support seafarers through the continuing pandemic issues? And moving into the future, what can we learn from what we're doing now that can make our industry even stronger into the future? So it really is an honor to be here, and I look forward to the discussions.
Madam President, thank you very much. And Karen, could you be so kind to introduce yourself, although I know it's not necessary.
Thank you, Yvonne, and I mean that's a lot of credit. Thanks for that. Just like Gillian, I'm honored to be speaking to you today. I hope we have a frank conversation. We had a really good, I think, preparation talk. And yeah, to Captain Adami, of course, I hope the situation will remain stable and under control with your vessels. Jumping into, hey, you've asked me to introduce myself, and maybe it's easy to start with I'll start with the easy one. I'm a ship owner and ship manager. I started my own company when I was 23 years young. Got, and that's not the right word to use, but I'm always saying that, got infected with the maritime virus in a positive way, because I think once you're in this industry, you don't want to leave it. It's such an engaging industry with lots of different cultures. No day is the same. Unfortunately, also with having to deal with crisis situations like Mr. Adam, Captain Adami now might have to skip a little bit later, but it was very clear that this is the industry for me where I can put all my energy in, and where I hopefully can make a contribution, even if it's a small one. So being a Dutch ship owner made me end up in the board of the Dutch Ship Owners Association, and currently I am the president of the Dutch Ship Owners Association. And the very, very positive news we brought out today is that the Dutch Ship Owners Association, together with the government and the health organizations, have announced that as from half of June, we will be starting vaccinating all seafarers on board of Dutch flagged vessels. And that will be done from 4 ports in the Netherlands, but also at Schiphol Airport, so that those who have to only have a connection at Schiphol can actually be vaccinated at Schiphol and then continue their flight to or trip to a vessel. And I think that's the heart of what we're going to discuss here today. Everything about the seafarers, the vaccination, Neptune Declaration, name it. Yes, I have various hats on, as Yvonne said. I am, I think, the only one, to be honest, who is on the board of the International Chamber of Shipping, but also on BIMCO and on Intertanko. And that means that you kind of have the feeling and the sense, and hopefully a little bit influence in a positive way on what the roundtable partners are discussing. And yeah, I think if one thing has been clear from the experience over the past year, from the COVID pandemic, is that there is an unheard of cooperation between unions, which I think is very important, union, ship owners, everybody industry, the roundtable partners. We all do what we can in order to support the IMO, and who on their turn try to convince governments to recognize seafarers as a key worker. And let me leave it there, because I think I would really also love to hear from Captain Adami, although I think the majority in Cyprus, for sure, if they don't know you, that would be a surprise to me. But if that's okay, Yvonne.
Sure, but I would like to mention something. You stated that vaccinations will be available for all those on Dutch flag vessels, but that also has been extended, from my understanding, to those vessels managed from the Netherlands as well.
Yeah.
Not just Dutch flag vessels.
So managed and owned. And of course, this is has been a very delicate process, Yvonne, because as you will understand, we are in the middle of the logistics because we want to avoid that everybody can simply go at Schiphol to this area and say, hey, I am a seafarer. So those logistics are being filled in because we really would like, of course, there might be slips in between, but we really focus on what we estimate as 50,000 seafarers who will then be vaccinated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
I think it's super news, and thank you for sharing it. Hot off the press. So, without further, Captain Adami, would you like to introduce yourself for those of us who don't know you?
I think I should save us the time and go straight to the topic, because I know all of you actually, and I believe you know me too. And Madam President, we talked in the preparatory meetings for this meeting, and Karen and I, we go along many years, so we appreciate and we love each other. So I think there is no need for introduction either. It was very rewarding from Miss Carlson Jackson to hear the emphasis she is putting on making the branches of the Nautical Institute more active and more inclusive. This goes, of course, also from the branch back to the headquarters. Of course, we want to do that as well, and I believe Cyprus will be a great ally to you to spread that gospel and to do the work. Karen, congratulations to the breakthrough with the negotiations of the Dutch government to get the seafarers vaccinated. As I always say in life, words, they are important, but the actions count. Saying the seafarer is important and 90% of blah, 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 blah. We heard that now for 1.5 years, almost 2 years. And yet now we have a breakthrough in Holland that seafarers get vaccinated. Some other countries are also very close to achieve this, and some others are very, very far from that. And while we have the great news, we also hear that other countries are closing again for crew changes. So we are in a very, very fluent situation with the virus. We are actually learning every day and new things, and we try, as good seafarers, we try to patch up our problems. And we try to find workarounds, and somehow we also manage, because the world didn't come to a standstill. I mean, the ships continue to roll, to go to sea, to meet the mighty waves and bad weathers and storms, and the seafarers manage in emergencies to put out fires, and they just do the job. So somehow the whole thing is going. And I believe this is one part of our problem of our industry, that we always manage somehow. Yeah, an aeroplane or an airline industry who doesn't manage when planes are grounded. Wow, the whole world is there. The government subsidies and applause and God knows what. It's visible when the plane is on the ground. The journalists, they can take the snapshots of it. It's visible. Everybody can do it. We are not visible. Yeah, and our seafarers are even less visible. I believe they are heroes, and they are doing such a great job every day, totally unnoticed, even within our own companies, often unnoticed. The topic is here today, technology, and how do we go around from the ship owner side, and that's my part where I shall contribute. And I tell you frankly, we are not doing well. We have challenges, and we don't get the spare parts in time on board, and we don't get the reports from the vessels as we would like them in order to help the guys. In many cases, seafarers take action on their own, and they decide on their own. and they do the right decisions in most of the cases, and they make the ships to move. Yeah. So I don't know which side I shall take. Shall I take the side of the governments, of the associations, or shall I take the side of the seafarers? When I take the side of the seafarers, then I would say the world is not doing enough. When I take the sides of the associations, I see them working extremely hard, like Karen explained to us. And they are knocking on doors, and they are in meetings, and they are writing letters. They raise opinions, and the result is very, very late and little, unfortunately.
Captain
What
Adamis,
the world,
if I may interrupt, reading the yesterday press release from IMO Secretary General Kitak Lim, I mean, he was also raising concerns that to date only 58 out of the 174 members have notified him that they have designated seafarers as key workers, and they will facilitate access to vaccinations since most states are prioritizing essential workers in their national COVID-19 vaccination programs, exactly as Cyprus has done, exactly now as hot off the press Karen advised us, in accordance with the WHO SAGE roadmap. You know, what else can we do as a community to increase that 58 number of member states?
well, Yvonne, even that 58, when you look at what are the real actions of these 58, I must say, and I take the side of the seafarer now, it's totally insufficient. Many of these 58 have taken this as a marketing tool. They are going out and saying, we are signing the Neptune Declaration, we declare seafarers as key workers, we are the greatest, and so on, and we try to do. But in reality, it's not yielding the results. I mean, what we need is nothing else than the World Health Organization and the IMO coming together and jointly declaring seafarers as key workers. And this is the little new document what every seafarer should be accompanied with, which regulates his safe traveling because his vaccination is registered, etc., etc. But this is not happening. And for as long as we don't align, in my humble opinion, the World Health and the IMO, and we mandate to states to prioritize seafarers, not only in COVID, yeah, there are many things where we should prioritize seafarers. I mean, we see it when we are traveling in the airports. The airline crew members, they have a designated desk in the airports where they all go through and passport control. We seafarers, we are standing in the queue behind all the tourists, yeah, last. And that would not be so difficult for a government to say, whenever there is a seafarer, let him go through this desk, which is dedicated maybe for the diplomats, because there's so little diplomats. Many times there's 0 diplomats, but the desk is there and an officer is sitting there. So there are many, many things which can be done and which are not done. So I personally, I don't agree that seafarers are recognized as key workers. They are said to be, but they're not recognized as key. We have not managed that. And I think this is our job now in the Nautical Institute to raise it. We should not be satisfied with somebody saying, okay,
sorry, Gillian, if
okay,
I can,
make
a statement also to you. The Human Rights Due Diligence Tool, joint initiative of the UN Global Compact, UN Human Rights, ILO and IMO, has been released to help enterprises using shipping services to protect human rights of seafarers, because we still have in excess of 200,000 with overdue repatriation, tragically. And the UN agencies have apparently expressed concerns that companies engaged in international trade are even avoiding chartering vessels where a crew change is actually due, and some charterers demanding no crew change clause in their charter party agreements. I mean, would you and perhaps even Karen like to highlight your perspective on this?
Well, I think it goes back a little bit too, as well, what Captain Adami was saying, and you know, being declared a key worker means absolutely nothing in some countries, because it's just to say that you've done it. So that aspect of being declared a key worker, and just what came back in that survey that we did that I alluded to at the very beginning, being a key worker is not clearly stated. And so what are the benefits of that? You can be a key worker, but as Captain Adami says, you wait in the very end of the line when you're trying to go through an airport, or you don't get any of this key worker status. The percentage of seafarers on board beyond their expiry of their contracts has actually, thankfully, been diminishing, which is really quite good. There are still some out there, but I think that there has been some benefit on that. And that came out, I think, in the Neptune Foundation, the Neptune Declaration as well, from last April, April 2021. The link, though, between the contract and the hiring of the vessel or not using the vessel because of this, putting this in a contract, it's got to be illegal because it's against human rights. So there are many human rights issues that are on vessels at the moment that we are aware of. They're causing traumatic experiences with the seafarers that will have repercussions well beyond the end of COVID. So what we are doing to these people at sea right now, these human beings that have rights, will be with us well beyond the end of COVID. What we can do now, though, is put in place safeguards that will protect us and make the industry stronger, I hope, into the future.
Karen, if you could also share your perspective on this, as well as the fact that, you know, our Madam President highlighted that over 800 organizations or companies signed the Neptune Agreement. Unfortunately, we don't have a representative able to share their opinion with us today, but from a private opinion, you mentioned during our test run that charterers are now getting involved. However, this human rights due diligence tool has been created to encourage them to avoid the demand of a no crew change clause within the charter party agreements.
Yeah, and thanks for the question, Yvonne. I think things go hopefully hand in hand. And what I think is very clearly also during the past year is that a lot that besides, let me say, the traditional way of working, that would be a national government going to the IMO and then put something on a paper. I think we know with a lot of legislation that it took 10 years or more for then get the right figure in place in order to get, for instance, the MLC, Maritime Labour Convention, approved. So we know it is a very, very slow process. And being an entrepreneur myself, I mean, I've been jumping as well, saying, hey, this needs this whole process needs to go quicker. And that's why I know that behind the scenes, a lot of preparation work has been done by the unions, by everybody, in order to bring concrete proposals to the IMO so that the IMO could roll them out. Yes, it is true. There are 2 less countries stating that they recognize seafarers as a key worker. But I think the good thing about the whole Neptune Declaration is, and the actions now by Mr. Kita Klim, is that a lot of companies are actually stepping up, and it might only sound like 800, but those 800 represent a big number in the total industry. So I think it is meant as the industry partners as such saying, hey, we care. Governments, please step up, because until now the biggest challenges have been for every seafarer with a national the national policies, and not the seafaring, and not the maritime ministers. They all know about this, and they know how that we are a global industry. It's the health industry. I think what is the word called in the US? Is it CDC? I mean, they have been.
Yes, CDC.
They have been the biggest challenge for our industry because of the demands they are putting on our industry in order to make a simple crew change. And I know in the beginning, one of the demands was, for instance, if somebody leaves a vessel, you need to be, let's say, in a taxi all the way, or being guided by somebody from the company all the way back home. And that is impossible if you leave a vessel in Florida and have to go to Australia. I mean, it's those simple things which made it impossible. Now, I think all of us know what is happening in Australia. Let's not forget what is happening in India. But the good thing is, and that is again, it's a combination of industry people together with I think the Mission for Seafarer, ICE One, and some other NGOs. There's now being created a relief fund so that we could actually get access for all the Indian seafarers, that they can get access to vaccination. And I think, again, this is a very good example of organization who is not competing, but maybe I can say it like that, who normally have the same interest and kind of get money from the same owners, now said, hey, it's important, let's sit together, let all our individual organization put that aside. We have one focus, and the focus is that all those Indian seafarers should be vaccinated as soon as possible so they can go back to doing their jobs. I think the good news is that today was, I think, announced that one of the big cruise liners also said, hey, we are going to rehire Indian seafarers. So yes, I agree, and then it's still a too slow process. I fully agree with that. I mean, we have a seafarer on board now who was tested positive in Norway. He's not allowed to leave the vessel in Norway, not in Sweden, and not in the UK. So name it. I mean, this is this bureaucracy. What I'm not sure if I should name, but I think we feel it like that. It is fear and bureaucracy of national policies which makes it impossible. And the rumor goes that in some Scandinavian countries, it actually the new rule might be that you only are allowed to enter the country if you have a proof that you have been vaccinated, and that restricts our industry tremendously. So when Captain Adami said, or I think you questioned it, Yvonne, what can be done and how can we make things clear? I think the Ever Given was the best example we could ever have, because then all of a sudden everybody knew what a vessel was. And unfortunately, it sounds weird, the vessel was released quite quickly, and that meant that there was less media attention then flows away. But it was and I think the positive thing is that it created a lot of attention. Unfortunately, every incident creates often an attention, and that is also when what is his name again? The famous actor, when he played the Maersk, the captain who got hijacked. What is the film called again?
Kevin Costner.
Sorry.
Now, Captain Phillips is the name of the movie.
Captain Phillips, but it was played by Kevin Costner, I think.
No, not Kevin Costner. Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, yes, sorry.
You don't win the washing machine, the competition, and you win the washing machine. But it's quite interesting, because I think it is spot on. Friends of mine were saying, hey, nobody will recognize anything about piracy or whatever unless there will be a big environmental discussion or whatever. Or a famous actor will actually take the role. And I think, unfortunately, maybe that will happen with Ever Given as well. I think in sake of the crew, the good thing is that only a few crew members have been able to go home now. But the world is watching the government in Egypt right away, so right now, and I really hope that those seafarers who are on board are able to go home, because Yvonne, you've been sharing some other stuff with us as well. And we know that some seafarers have been in Egypt, stuck there for 4 years. and that is traumatic. And I mean, it's yeah, I don't even know how you can deal with something like that.
Since we have two owners and managers addressing the audience today, what actions are you guys taking for vaccination for your seafarers?
The answer is we are following the protocols, yeah, because you cannot go into the market and buy the vaccine, so you wait until it's your turn. As simple as
So
that.
you have to
yeah?
follow the national protocols of the nationality of your seafarers.
Yeah, exactly. And you just wait that the whole thing is cranking up. But if I just may add to what Karen said, I like that very much, actually. The comment was very spot on. With the Ever Given and the media attention, I mean. The sad thing is that at the very same moment, we have about 200 seafarers worldwide who are totally abandoned. And they are sitting on their ships without any support, without anything. And nobody talks about them because they are forgotten. There is no company behind them anymore. There is almost nothing other than good administration overlooking the vessel being arrested, and nobody talks about them. That's a sad story. If you total them together, they are more than the guys which are on the Ever Given. And then what about the seafarers which are, for unjustified reason, maybe not even charged, still in custody of governments? And here we talk often, unfortunately, about nautical officers, captains. Yeah. So I guess we still have a job to do. And Yvonne, you mentioned, or you asked me now what we are going to do regarding the vaccination. I tell you frankly, the vaccination and the current COVID protocols is a huge burden by us in the crewing department. Our ladies and gentlemen in the crewing department, they are doing a tremendous job to keep the thing going, and the seafarer responding on board and at home like a gearbox, and they are running also very, very fast. I, on the management level, have of course already the next nightmare ahead of me where I'm working on, and that is what is coming if the world comes out of COVID. Then we will realize that ships are moving, ships will become extremely busy, and then we will realize that we don't have seafarers because we have stopped educating. The academies are not very productive, and seafarers who were not able to join their ships during the pandemic, they had to feed the families. So they had to find somehow to get by. So these guys, they picked up jobs on shore. Yeah. And I don't think that all of them will eventually come back to sea. So my biggest worry is once COVID is over, that we run into a massive shortage of seafarers. And that's my big worry, actually. And I see now this in little microscopic steps already happening in the Philippines and in Indonesia, because many companies unfortunately cannot recruit currently Indian seafarers because of the restrictions in India. They cannot restrict the seafarers from Myanmar because of the geopolitical problems in Myanmar. So they have to resort to the nations which we all know, and you already realize the shortage, what we have there. So being a manager, my worry is ahead of COVID, to be quite honest. And I stop here.
Karen, Gillian, do you share the same opinion that we will encounter a shortage of seafarers post-COVID because of lack of training, competence, those willing to go back on board in fear of a potential repeat of the history?
I've already highlighted that this is one of my grave concerns. I've actually got about 3 or 4 points that sort of have come out of that. But through past discussions that we've had in various webinars and with the Maritime Matters videos that I've been doing, this has been a real theme. The concern is who is going to want to go to sea. So the publicity is good on one side because it raises the profile of the maritime industry. But on the other side, it's, you know, the seafarers are stuck on board, they can't get home, they need the vaccines, they can't get ashore. Why would a young person then decide they want to go to sea? One of the young seafarers that I interviewed was just doing his final exams and waiting to try and get a ship, was seriously considering changing career because of the issues that have been highlighted during COVID. Now, this issue isn't new, though. It's just been highlighted by COVID. The concern already with young people moving into a maritime career, going to sea, has been there for a number of years with the lack of connectivity, with the ongoing human rights. People are aware seafarers have been abandoned long before COVID started. Maybe we're more aware of them now, but it has been happening. So these are not issues that were isolated or only because of COVID. Perhaps the extended time on board because they couldn't do crew change were, but many of these issues, the criminalization of seafarers, we've been working on that in the Nautical Institute for decades. And that's why the Nautical Institute actually, for our members, went and acquired some access to legal representation if a seafarer is in a situation of being criminalized, because it's such an issue. So these are issues that we're seeing now in COVID. Perhaps it's putting a bit more of a focus. We're pulling up the binoculars and looking at them a little bit more in focus, but those issues have been there before. The abandonment of seafarers came out in one of my interviews with Manov's Joy, and there are pockets of people who are working so hard to try and support these, one case at a time, but there's hundreds of them. So when you look at the human rights aspects, you look at the education that's required, these are trained, highly trained maritime professionals who are now being driven to jump off their vessel and go cling onto a buoy in Port Phillip Bay because, you know, they want to get off the ship. So there are benefits of being under the microscope and having the Ever Given and having lots of publicity on it, but there's also negatives because we need to ensure that this is an amazing industry. I started off in this industry as a teenager, as Karen did. I started off going to sea, and I'm still here. I would love to be able to instill that energy and that passion into other people as they move into this industry. And we do need to look at post-COVID. It's not an issue that's just only because of COVID, but it's going to be exacerbated, I believe, by the issues that have been highlighted during COVID.
Can we actually twist it a little bit around, Gillian and Captain Adami and Yvonne? Because I think, and rightfully, I mean, I'm not saying that nothing happens, but I think our biggest challenge is that we are this global industry. At the same time, if I look at, let's say, some other industry like the airlines, they are not prioritized either to be vaccinated. So in a way, we are making some bold steps. I'm also trying to turn it around a little bit. So we are making bold steps. We try to learn from from other industries when possible. I think the abandonment of seafarers, I think, has been a big concern to a lot of, let's say, ship owners who really try to do everything they can. But at a certain moment, I mean, there's nothing more that you can do. I think that also, I think Captain Adami is doing the same, communicating and keep direct contact with your fleet as much as possible is the only way to let all the seafarers know, hey, and their families, I mean, don't forget the families, we're here, but our hands are tied. Because I'm on the board of ISWAN, International Seafarers Network Assistance, I've heard about a lot of abandonment cases, but often those cases were really sad ones. Namely, it starts with, and I'm not going to name names, but it starts with seafarers having to pay a lot of money in order to get a job. some developing countries, let me put it like that. So they pay a lot of money themselves in order to get a job, and then they are being put on board of a vessel by a not very good crewing agency. They're being put on an abandoned vessel with the knowledge that this seafarer most probably is unable to get off at all. Then the flag state, says, "Hey, sorry, but it's no longer my vessel. The owner is no longer there, classification is no longer there, and the insurance are not there." I think that is the difference now with let's say with the previous cases and the ones I'm mentioning now, and with the COVID, is that I think a lot of us are really trying to do everything they can, and the limitations are horrible and really difficult to struggle with. So I fully understand if somebody really says, "Hey, I need to go home." And yeah, in this sad case, what you shared with us, Yvonne, where the guy was really not coping with it anymore, jumped overboard. Unfortunately, that wasn't the solution, because he jumped overboard in a country where no flights are going in or out. So it didn't help him. But once your mindset is like that, I mean, it's impossible. And I know from MSC, for instance, that they have been dealing with cases like that as well. Going back to, I think, the point, do we have a problem in the future, retention and attracting the next generation? The answer is also a little bit mixed from my side, because I still believe that we have a very good story to tell. Yes, we have to deal with a pandemic just like anybody in our daily lives, I would say. The challenge for me is, and I think there is where the Nautical Institute jumps in as well, is what will happen, what are the future demands? And that is a skill set, but also the demands of the industry and of the population goes way beyond our traditional education. And there's where I see the biggest challenge. And we've had that ourselves when we were actually starting to trade with one of the first dual fuel LNG vessels, where we simply couldn't get our training for our seafarers here, and then have to deal with national restrictions again. So and the IMO not able of giving some guidance in that respect as well. And I would love to hear Gillian her feedback on that, because that to me is a key challenge. There will be a lot of changes in the future. I think we know that this generation will have a lifelong learning, I think is the phrase. It will be attractive, but it means a completely different mindset. But also, what happens to if we trade on waterstof, the next not ammonia, for instance, or with full battery package, autonomous. Oh, what Captain Adam is that? His eyebrows. I hope it's not because of what I'm saying. But I mean, those are the real challenges. I think for students. So Gillian, what is your...
A totally different perspective in terms of competency based on digitalization and the technological boom, exacerbated potentially by COVID.
Yeah.
Because it was already pre-COVID.
And I think actually, though, in a way, we have an opportunity to learn and to benefit from COVID, because look what we're doing now. And a lot of training has now been put online. There is now online training for some STCW courses that have been approved by the US, for example, the US Coast Guard, and other countries as well. So we have more opportunities to provide training, and the training is linked into this digitalization of the environment. So that means that we can make use of the tools to do the training in a whole new way. And it's not that we're taking classroom-based training and put it online. We're actually changing the way that we are training, and we're changing the way that we expect the students to learn. So it is this learning to learn, from teaching a topic to a concept, but to actually have this learning to learn aspect. And I think this is where we are moving, and we need the input from the industry very closely to say, what are the new skill sets? What are the skill sets for the future in maritime professional? Where does maritime informatics fit in? The idea of smart ships, ship-shore interface, you know, the links between the hinterland and all of the technology that we use. This is actually really exciting. This is why I think, although, you know, we could have a negativity for seafarers, we have actually a really cool industry for people to join, because it is constantly changing, and we are looking at cutting edge technology that has practical purposes. So it's not just developing technology for the sake of having the technology. There's practical purposes that are being used. Now, I do think we have to draw the line a bit. A lot of developments that are happening are often because they're really cool, look what we can do. But where is the need? Where's the use case? Where is the reason for doing that? And if we can give the tools to do the job, show the reason why, and provide the training, then we can't even imagine what training the new seafarers are going to need in the future. What we can do is give them the skill set so that they can adapt as the technologies and as the industry.
I have 3 comments I see in the chat box from the same individual, Mr. Neil Hawkes. The first one, I guess he's commenting regarding the collaboration or the delays in government or stakeholder collaboration. He says, are most of the delays just not political? The second one is, the same gentleman, are the academy closures restrictions also delaying recertification of existing officers?
My answer would be no, and I know that we had that discussion. But I had a meeting with the Philippine government 1.5 weeks ago now, I think. In the Netherlands, the answer would be no, but I know in the Philippines they are struggling a little bit, but they try to catch up. But the biggest challenge in the Philippines is internet connection. So despite the fact that everything or a lot can be done online, unfortunately, a figure I was told is that 73% of the student doesn't have a proper internet connection. So that follows back on Captain Adami, his comment that, hey, this is a major challenge for all of us, because we will have a challenge in the future on hiring Filipino seafarers, because it's going to be a delay in their education, very clearly.
And lastly, he says, sorry, Captain Adami.
I agree what Karen said, and but I disagree a little bit with the assessment how well the IMO is doing with regard to training in general, and I want to bring the requirement of the electronic chart displays. That we as seafarers need to have a specific type approved training in order to handle a navigation device.
Yep.
At the same time, when ACTIS was introduced, electronic controlled main engines were introduced. Where is the requirement from the IMO for the chief engineers and for the ETOs to have a type approved training of the electronic controlled main engine? Is not there. And technology, yes, of course, is great. And the technology is keeping us going now. Webinars, better broadband, and this it is what keeps us going. And we have to continue in this way to find ways to patch our problems, as every good company is doing. But again, on the management side, we have to know that all these things is coming at a cost. And the cost is also including a huge risk. I mean, lesser educated professionals in our industry could lead to maritime accidents. New technology where office and seafaring personnel is not getting acquainted with is bearing risks. We are talking about fuels now, new fuels, hydrogen, LNG, ammonia. scrubber technology, water ballast management, treatment plants, etc., etc. All these new stuff what we saw on board of our ships now is new technology to a lot of our seafarers, and yet they have to cope with it. So we need to be in the same way where we introduce new technology, aware that we have to mitigate the risk which are associated with this one. And this is why I appeal to everyone, think within your own company about the quality of your own training department, which should include also your shore-based personnel. We all need now drastic new training in order to be ready for the technology of tomorrow and the challenges. We all are saved by the governments who have allowed remote surveys. Classification societies doing remote annual surveys on board of ships. All great, fantastic. But is our ship safe after it passed such a remote survey? Can we sleep in the same way safe as if there would have been a human surveyor on board looking in all the corners of the ship while performing an annual survey? So we need to know these things, and we have to balance the actions, and in management be aware that there are weaknesses which you have to counteract upon so that the accident is not happening on your vessel. But there are ways to do it, and positive things. And again, a big thank you to everyone in this industry to keep the world moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Adami. One other.
And if I could just one more thing, just on that, just one little thing on that is that what's been highlighted really is very truly, both Karen and Captain Adami has said this, is this digital divide. And we are definitely seeing the digital divide when we're looking at what we're training. We've got, I talked with Melanie Shankar about that as well in one of my Maritime Matters, and she was saying because there's so little internet, they were taking their laptops and sitting underneath a tree where there's internet, trying to find locations where they could do their training. So we have this expectation that we can do training online, but there is this very large digital divide. I really do hope that the IMT 2020 and 2030, the international mobile telecommunication developments in 5G is going to help us with bringing some equality to there. But we do have this issue of the digital divide. And when we come to training and thinking about the requirement for training, one thing I do believe is we need to give more critical thinking skills and digital technology skills. You think of your mobile phone. Who taught you to use your mobile phone? What training program did you go to use that? But yet it's something that you use all the time. It's because you have this concept of some aspect of how things ought to work. We can train our students, our future seafarers with those skill sets. When the new technology comes out, we don't need to wait for the IMO to mandate a training course or come up with a training course. The new technology comes with this ability of the students now to have that knowledge, to have that inquisitiveness, to have that digital technology, that digital knowledge already, so that they can actually start and do some training within that concept. So the whole idea of how we train is going to have to change. We don't take students and put them into a classroom and lecture them on how to do something specifically, because by the time we've done that and developed that training program, that technology has changed. What we need to do is give them the skill set so that they can learn as the technology is providing. And as I said, I can't imagine what the skill sets are they're going to do into the future specifically, but we need to know they need to know how to learn.
And I think in addition to that, I think our biggest challenge, but I think all four of us on this call I like a challenge, so I can say that. But I think the challenge for the majority is for the current seafarers already. And so those who are on board of the fleet, who are not used to all these new trainings, that is where I think that our biggest challenge lies. And that again is a matter of training, guiding, training, guiding, training, guiding, in order to avoid incidents and accidents. But I think that is the biggest challenge. Those who have been educated quite some time ago, how can they keep up with all these new technologies and things like that? Sorry, Yvonne, you had a
problem.
question.
You know, one of the other challenges that I believe it remains a factor is the connectivity of the crew to their home countries or to their families. But I think this is a subject for another day. Mr. Neil Hawkes, he also said, if the COVID restrictions continues for another few years, it could result in unmanned vessels' timetable being considerably shortened. I believe this was already touched upon. Are you all of the same opinion? Do you believe that unmanned or autonomous vessels will be exacerbated? No.
Well, I think there's.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You have to say that there is a concept: what's unmanned and what's autonomous. So autonomous does not mean unmanned.
Yes.
And even if it's going to be with no one actually on the vessel, is it remote controlled? So where's the control center? So this idea of autonomy, completely 100% autonomous vessels, I think is a bit of a misnomer. And the idea, you have to make that differentiation between what are we talking about? Digitalization is definitely there, yes. And I think that COVID has already pushed forward a lot of the development and a lot of the implementation and the adaptation, adopting of this digital technology. But I'll pass on to the others for further thoughts.
No, yeah, what I was going to add, Gillian, and again, it also has to do with reputation and potential reputational damage. So interesting enough, in the tanker industry, what you see is not people focusing on less people on board. No, it's actually the other way around. So the oil majors are demanding the number of people being increased. And I think that all has to do with a potential risk, which is there, of course, for the environment, but also for the companies and their reputation. And same goes for flag states. I mean, I don't foresee a passenger vessel to be without almost any crew member, and that mainly also is a mindset. Do people feel safe? So would we be, on a longer distance, be willing to do that? So I think it's things are developing in a positive way. I think we all agree on that. Technology is also there to support us. Digitalization and big data has also assisted us, I think, by sharing and being more open and sharing this information can also lead to new thoughts and ideas which are beneficial for all of us. So we should let go. It is a negative thing, of course. It can be felt as a negative thing because people assume one doesn't go in hand with the other. Captain Adami, you were going to say something. Sorry.
Definitely, the industry has to embrace autonomy. And as Ms. Carlson said, autonomy doesn't mean unmanned ships. Yeah, so this must be very clear to all of us. We are getting more and more electronics on board of our vessels to control certain activities on board of the ships, and that will continue, and that is good. To have a vessel which is completely digital is for the time being impossible, because at this very moment we do not even have digital the single component of a main engine. Yeah, if you want today to go to a manufacturer and you ask, can I have for this engine a digital electronic a manual? The answer will be no, because it doesn't exist. Yeah, we have standards worldwide, standards in the aviation industry, because the aviation industry and the military, the navies, they are fully digital. They follow a standard S1000D, But in shipping, we do not have this. We have somewhere in SOLAS, somewhere down the line, we have a sentence which says vessels must be accompanied with a set of technical documents, period. There is no digital main engine, no digital auxiliary engine, no digital actors, no digital nothing. So how you want to have now a digital vessel when you don't have your equipment in digits? The industry is not there. And before we don't achieve this, there will not be the possibility to have such a unmanned vessel going around. But again, we need more autonomy in order to control the existing controls. For me, it's mind-boggling that ships collide in the middle of the ocean. I will never understand that. As a seafarer, I don't accept it. And as a person who sits on many development boards, I don't understand it. But it happens. It still happens.
Thank you, Captain. I see another 3 comments, so I will read them out. One is a statement. We see now many embassies are not issuing visas. This impacts crew changes.
Yes.
Another one, and actually I've seen the results of many publications of surveys being carried out. Hands-on training for firefighting and lifeboat, life raft training is essential. Many accidents on board tend to, or deficiencies, let's say, identified, relate to these aspects. And finally, so do we think that flag state will finally amend their safe mining certificate to be more compatible to the ship's design trade?
On your last comment, Yvonne, I think that is under investigation currently. I mean, there's a lot of discussions going on the safe manning and how it is performed. I think, again, to be frank, I think a lot of ship owners add more people than the minimum safe manning anyhow. But we need to also try to flip it over. I think for us, a minimum safe manning is not to put the minimum on board, but what can we do in case of an incident? What do we really need in case of an incident? Which are the key workers or critical workers or whoever we call it? I think it's called the safe manning now, but somewhere there is a thought process of minimum safe manning in order to save costs. And to be frank, I think that is, yeah, I mean, I can say with a hand on my heart, I think a lot of companies have stepped up even in very challenging financial times in order to make your vessel trade in a proper way. There is no way that you can save on your crew beyond whatever, because yeah, that's I think really old school. If I'm not sure if I should say old school, but it's something I don't recognize. Let me put it like that. Captain Adami, is that something?
I share your view, Karen. 1,000%. You're absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on.
Minimum safe manning certificate is a guide from what to identify the minimum number of crew on board to execute the responsibilities for the vessel to operate safely.
Yeah, to operate safe. Yeah, so the spirit of the safe manning is just to bring the vessel from A to B and to handle emergencies, grounding, collision, fire. That's it. Maintenance is not included. Loading, discharging is not included. So it's just to move the vessel from A to B. But I also would like, I would also like to say, depends a little bit of the type of vessel here. Yeah, sometimes we say small vessels don't need a lot of crew members, and small vessels in the coastal trade they can have crew with less salaries because their vessels is small. These are all arguments of the past, which are for me not valid. Small coasters, they do such a big job because they have many more ports than the big vessels. They do not have a captain and a chief mate and a second mate and a third mate. They just have a captain and a mate, and they share the watch. So, I mean, we have to be a bit specific. A vessel which is doing Cape-size transportation every 2 months a port, this is completely different. So that's why I think also governments have problems to regulate their safe manning or minimum safe manning, as some flag states are calling it, requirements. No? I remember in the old days in Holland, we had a very good idea to go about the length of the vessel and to make the seafarers based. This is a very, very smart concept, actually, when you think about it. But at the end of the day, then the Dutch certificates, they had to be recognized in worldwide as well, and worldwide it is a GT. So we went back to the GT and so on. It's difficult. It is difficult, and technology definitely helps, but that is also recognized already. So if vessels have automatic mooring devices, flag states recognizes, they give you credit in the manning. But let's not forget, flags compete on safe manning skill requirements. Certain flags, they say, now, okay, if you come to us, you can have an AB lesson. Maybe you don't need that engineer if you come to us.
And I think you're addressing a valid point, Captain Adami. But again, if the trade is exactly the same and only the flag state is different, then it comes to the manager and the owner. Are you can I say it like that? Are you a responsible manager and owner? Because nobody can fulfill the rest working in rest hours if it's not a realistic one. But spot on, Captain Adami. Flag states try to compete with each other on that point.
On that point, Karen, one of our audience, he says, until such time as work and rest hours compliance bans the possibility of 6 on 6 off watch rotation, then manning levels will always be contested.
Yeah, but it's also, I think there is now a what is the word I'm looking for? Of course, people who want to cheat, Yvonne, can cheat and will cheat. But port state control has very good tricks to address those things. And incidents, of course, can happen. I mean, if rest hours due to, let's say, an engine failure has happened, then I think certain industries, or let's say for us with our oil, with our tankers, it's very clear, okay, an incident has happened, everybody knows that, and this means that the chief engineer is unable to work for an X number of hours. And that is something I think we're not used to. But in the end, we're there to protect our seafarers as well. So if the rest hours are not being made and a major incident happened, then everybody finger points at the seafarers. But that's not fair, because often the seafarers try to do their best because they assume that the owner and charterer want them to either rush or do those things. And that is a mindset and I think a culture which takes time to continuously address. Yeah.
Very true.
And Captain Andreas Michael, he states, we do not need any more new technology for the time being, but to simplify the existing ones.
I'm all for it. Simplifying.
And Captain Michael Quain, he says, we know that a large number of countries are presenting allowing crew changes. It appears to me that the owners could simply divert their ships to one of these ports in order to carry out a crew change. I know some owners are doing this.
I'd like to take that just a little. Oh, sorry. I'd like to go a little bit further on that. And one of the things that we've been looking at in many organizations working together is this idea of a crew change hubs, so that you have these these dedicated hubs for crew change with a facility for quarantine, for seafarer quarantine, and that these can be identified. So I do believe that this could be one area, one way that we could go and facilitate by putting in these hubs.
I believe in response regarding the rest hours, rest and work hours, there is a response from one of our audience that says charter parties are still restricting this option. We are facing this all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I have deep sea ships and I have coastal vessels, and I have to concur what Karen said, that if we would fill the rest hours and the work hours, although we have excess crew in the short sea trade, we would not be able to sail. So we cannot put more crew members because already the cabins are there, and still we don't make it. So I believe that is a common thing in our industry, that we are cheating in the lists in order to make the port state control gentleman or lady happy. And that's a sad thing, that seafarers have to do that in order to get the job done. So rest hours, work hours, I loved it when STCW put it into the framework. But at the same time, when I look at what does the word rest hour means, does it mean social media is okay when you are in your cabin and you play with your Facebook and you do your online gaming and then you go on the bridge with zombie eyes? Are you rested because of you complied with not being at work, but you call it rest hours and you didn't really sleep? So we need, I think, in the spirit of rest hours, we need, between the seafarers and the companies, we need a very, very clear understanding of how to operate the ship safe. And that goes back to what Karen said, that good managers and good owners do have an understanding with their crew of how to handle these things correct. I recognize that we need rules and regulations. I ask myself, why 95% comply anyhow? 5% are the cowboys, and for all these, only 5%.
Captain Adame, you know, we're talking about the rest and work hours of the crew on board. I think we can equally say that important ashore, you know, in today's climate and the dynamics of the crewing department, we did touch upon the fact that, you know, these people are under so much pressure. They have daily contact with the crews on board. They are trying to find the best solutions possible for crew changes. It was mentioned that we are not in a crew change crisis, and actually I believe we still are, because the crisis is also shoreside for those staff members or team leaders who are not getting sufficient rest, who are confronted with negative responses from the embassies, dealing on a personal level with the crew, absorbing the crew's personal problems, exercising empathy toward them, and working more than the average 8 hours a day. We all know that this industry is a 24/7, 365, but there has to be a limit. I mean, are we aware that many of these managers, owners have employed additional team members to accommodate this overload? Because I know people who are working 16, 18 hours a day, don't consider a rotation at weekends for, let's say, the crewing officer to deal with an apportionment of number of vessels from their fleets. Everybody is involved, and there is no, let's say, best practice associated to the shoreside teams. So they also get rest. Don't worry about their crews on board, because over the years they do build up rapport, especially when you have a rotating crew within your fleets. Karen, Captain, any comments? Gillian?
No, I mean, I'm more than happy to address, and then Yvonne, I need to, because I have a TV interview in 20 minutes. But I fully agree with you. I mean, we discussed that in the preparation call as well. We recognize that our crewing department people, we had really had some people with a heavy burnout because they care so much, and they have been working 50 hours in addition to their normal monthly work. And I said, hey, how can we have all these protocols in place, and what to do in case we have a problem on board of the vessel? So we need to address this for the office as well. The thing is that some people, interesting enough, did not want to let go. They feel so responsible. They said, ho, 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 but these are my vessels and I want to take care of those people. Yeah. So we said, but then it means that the manager actually needs to step in more as well. And what we also did is during these days is give additional training on mental health to both the office staff as the seafarers. And we are in the process of actually hiring a crew welfare, health and welfare employee, initially for the seafarers, but because in Dutch law we have all different systems in place where you have a kind of a backup system already. But constantly we have been saying, hey, we see people respond in a different way during the whole pandemic than in their previous way of communicating. And that is, to me personally, that at times it is a challenge, because you're constantly challenged. And if you follow the rules and then they address those rules, and why is this and why is that, so it eats a lot of your energy. At the same time, I try to be as open-minded as I can and listen to those individuals, but also address them and say, hey, now you're complaining that you don't have contact with the people in the office. But be aware, the minute you are in the office, the first thing you say, hey, how is it possible that there are so many people here? So it is contradictory, but it is based on their mindset. And yeah, be open and transparent in discussing it, and offer solutions if possible. That's the way we deal with it. And it's not an easy one.
Spot
And I
on,
think one of
sorry.
no, you go ahead.
Spot on, Karen. This is how I see it as well. The key to get through is to remain positive. And most of the people working in the shipping industry, like you have a passion, you have an enthusiasm, you love what you are doing. And that is giving you the extra fuel in the tank to run the extra mile, to make things to happen. And that was my initial statement. This is, I think, with everybody, including the seafarers, and this is what makes us to pull through. This is why we are still delivering every day. And we have to stay positive and find a way. Teamwork at the end of the day, huge overload in the crewing department, great. Don't come now from the technical department and complain, but that chief engineer, I don't want them on my ship again because last time we did this to my main engine. So remove this friction which comes from natural day-to-day work in the offices. Support the crewing department from all areas. Give helping hands, maybe from the accounts department, from operations department, and in companies find ways. It was difficult because we were in lockdowns and home office and not in home office, and everybody comes, no, everybody goes again. So it was very difficult to establish a routine. But at the end of the day, the company somehow have managed it. And that's a good thing. The airline industry, they just close it. They are at home waiting until it opens again. And we keep on.
I think one thing about seafarers is we are very resilient. We do make things work because that's the type of people that we are, and we're in this industry. We're drawn to this industry because we want to have this energy, this excitement around us, and we make things work. So that's really what we do. When we're looking at both afloat and ashore, those maritime professionals, they are fatigued, they are tired, they are stressed, there are all of these issues are all coming along. So we just have to be aware of that. We can plan and prepare for that. We can have our own strategies in place. We can have response mechanisms available to us, and we can also have recovery options when something does go wrong. Because we are the way that we are. We are in an industry that is dynamic, it's energetic, and we're here because we love this industry, and we make everything work because that's just what we are. We're seafarers. When you're in the middle of the ocean, no one's going to be there to help you, so we make it work.
Yeah. I will wrap it up. It's been so exciting, the content, the deliverance, and the questions that were addressed. Based on the last comment of Karen regarding the culture, one audience member says, I'm obviously working for the wrong company. So, and closing, I will allow our listeners to formulate their own opinions from what they've heard today. One thing is for sure, we need more to be done. We need an elevation from the 58 states to well over 100, if not all of them, unless I'm being far, far too optimistic. I believe we need to further enhance our exposure to those outside the maritime industry. We need to put a pin in our own bubble and burst it, for want of a better expression, put ourselves out there, refrain from presenting to each other, in front of each other, what we are doing is something we are doing well, because we are getting it wrong in some places. Let's highlight on an abundance of positive aspects, as you quite rightly pointed out, surrounding the industry, and not only the negative. Let's encourage and promote best business practice. Let's continue to promote saving lives at sea. Let's continue to promote the pride, the passion that people take in being part of this contribution of 90% to everything. It's a wondrous industry, and let's spread the word of how diverse, inclusive, and connected we all are. In saying that, enormous thanks to Madam President Gillian Carson-Jackson. I'm sorry for keeping you awake so late. I think you and your cats can now go to bed. And please, from the Cyprus branch as well, happy 49th birthday to the Nautical Institute. Congratulations to all members around the world and headquarters. Karen, I'm touched and humbled for your participation. It did overextend longer than we anticipated, and I'm ever so grateful. Captain Adami, you are a person that I've always seen with a lot of vision as well in terms of our industry. I'm very, very grateful for your participation, and it does appear that we did maintain what participants we did have right until the end. The Nautical Institute, I'm proud to be a member of the Nautical Institute. I learned a lot. So if anybody wants to become a member, listening now, you know, there are huge benefits that you can reap. Check out the Nautical Institute headquarters website, or even our own branch website if you're based in Cyprus. What else can I say? Thank you to the members, you, the audience, for staying with us for so long. A round of applause for each of you. And the